world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is just a trigger warning that we will be discussing some issues around depression and suicide ideation today. So do take care of yourself. Well, hello and welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We are so happy to have you joining us today. And today we are speaking with Cheryl Pankhurst, and she's a special education specialist. She's spent over 25 years working with teens with unique needs and significant challenges. She's discovered her true passion of supporting, coaching, and collaborating with these teens and their families, the people who love them, as they navigate high school and the opportunities beyond. This led her to retiring from teaching and reinventing herself as a podcaster, coach, entrepreneur with the Teen Minds Redefined podcast. She loves hanging out with her grown-ass kids, reading a good book, and being outdoors. She's also an avid golfer, and if there is a sweet dog in need of a forever home, she will be first in line to adopt them. So thank you so much for joining us, and welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and grateful you connected with me. This is great.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So for those of you listening, we just finished up an hour with Cheryl doing her podcast. So we'll make sure and get you the information so you can listen to her podcast as well. So we are super excited. This is our second Canadian in less than a week, I think. So
okay.
we love our friends to the north,
Yes.
and we're super excited to have you here. And I've enjoyed our discussion so far. So Cheryl, give us a little background about how you came from 25 years as being a special ed teacher to how you came to have your own podcast and do the special work that you do now.
Sure. So I spent about 20 years as a head of department for a large high school. So I had 30 people underneath me, educational assistants, and I was responsible for almost 400 kids who had some type of diagnosis or learning challenge. And man, I just loved it. I loved it. I loved the crisis management. I loved the put out the fires. I loved that the kids, because I wasn't a teacher in their classroom, they felt very comfortable coming to me in the office because there was no judgment. They were allowed to drop F-bombs and tell me how they felt. And we were able to kind of sort out those emotions. And I don't think I dropped the F-bomb very often, but anyway. And then it was great to be able to, because they were high school. You know, I think parents sometimes get into this, oh, I shouldn't overpower, or I shouldn't, have too much communication. Oh, they should be on their own. They're responsible. They're getting ready for university and all of that. And I think, and also kids who have a diagnosis and who are, working through, trying to get through the high school with different challenges and different outcomes and different pathways. All of that was just my jam. I just loved working with parents and really being able to think outside the box and think on the fly and let's try this and let's try this and give them a different perspective. And I think parents just knew that I loved their kids. They were my kids. And I love hanging out with teenagers, probably more than most adults, to be honest. But I love those years. I love watching them grow. I love watching them come from, 14 to 18 and 19 and picking their pathways. Is just so exciting. And I just really want to I think being outside of teaching, and now the entrepreneur piece of me wants to be able to support families and allowing their kids to become their own true authentic selves, not who we think they should be or society thinks they should be. And, we wait till we're 40 and we go, oh, that's not my passion. Time to, flip the switch. Why can't kids do this in grade 9 and grade 10 and do that right from the start? I like that fire.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We had this long conversation with her about the school systems and how they're very difficult to work in, especially if you're someone like Cheryl who likes to think outside the box and try new things. And Cheryl and I also, we just discussed, we did some social emotional training with the same group, Breathe for Change. I want to give them a shout out here too.
Yes, absolutely.
But tell us a little bit about your struggles in the school system. What made you think like I can't work in the system anymore? I really need to get outside the system. What made you make that jump or make that change?
Well, I think it started when I was working with kids who were on the spectrum and non-speaking and very, very high needs significantly. And the system called it inclusion. And it wasn't inclusion. We had kids with significant needs who are just sitting in a classroom by themselves with 3 EAs. And there was, they would put all these initiatives in place, but they never backed it up. It was always back paddle, right? They didn't back it up with money. They didn't back it up with training. They didn't back it up with staffing. Even I don't know about your system, but in our system, we have educational assistants who will work with the teachers. And so 20 years ago, educational assistants signed up to sit beside somebody and print for them or, take them for a walk. And then the needs became very significant. And we have 50 and 65-year-old EAs who they're asking to put protective equipment on. And, it's just this whole, I could not watch my staff get hurt anymore. It was just so hard. And so I started doing the job. And that system told me, oh, you can't do that. You're in a union. If you get hurt, you won't be protected. And how can I expect my staff to do something I won't do? Like, that's such a disconnect.
Right.
And then I also found, like, with each new administration was a new buzzword, was a new portfolio, was a new. So if they had SEL on their training, you can bet it was implemented in the school because they had, a priority. But once that buzzword is off and they're going to talk about something else, which is essentially all the same things, but different word. So it just became that whole disconnect between who sits up in the board in the big leather chairs and makes all these decisions. And then we're left on, on the front lines trying to help these poor kids and poor families trying to get through it. And I thought, you know what? I love working with kids. I love working with parents. Don't like that. So let's just take a different shift. I took an early retirement. I wasn't quite there yet, but I thought, nah, this just isn't how I'm telling kids to be their own authentic selves. And I'm sitting here in a kind of a little bit of a soul sucking thing. So I'm like, no, I'm out.
Sucking the life right out of you, right? Yeah,
that really resonates, that whole idea around the school system, and having had a child who was on the spectrum, and so had an IEP or individual education plan, and yet just never fit in. And so we were in the East Coast, we were in Northern Virginia. So the whole mentality of the school system there is very competitive, very regimented, and very much in the box. And so there was always this, it has to be done this way. And it was such a bad fit. It so didn't fit for either of my kids, really. But my younger son really especially suffered from it, and has and his therapist called basically educational trauma, from being in this situation where he's being told, this is what you must do, this is what success looks like, and there's not these other ideas. And it just broke him. And so, you know, we had assistants, we had people from the special education department who were working with him, but you know, I would have loved to have someone like you, and not everyone we had didn't work, but there were certainly some people who just didn't have the right mentality for it, who were very much still trying to fit this neurodiverse kid, turned out to be transgender, and, you know, just didn't fit any of their boxes into a box, and that just doesn't work. And
No.
Can you guys speak to neurodiversity? I didn't know it until I knew Marci, and I know Cheryl's done a lot of work with this. Can you guys speak to that and give us a definition of what that means? I don't think everybody.
Please, Cheryl.
Yeah. Well, neurodiverse is really just an umbrella. And it just speaks to brains that don't work exactly like a typical brain would work. It just, they have different gifts. Those adults, I'm neurodivergent, ADHD, thank you. So yeah, so I have a lot of empathy for my kids. So it's just like an umbrella. So we can say kids with disabilities, learning disabilities, differently abled.
Yes.
There's different terms. I think neurodivergent just lends itself to being able to anyone who thinks a little differently without saying it's a disability, because it really isn't a disability. It's just a gift. And we just have to dig out that gift and allow it to shine. And I know even in the system, you were talking about how they fit in a box. And I'll never forget, a principal said to me, when I was advocating for a kid in his office, and I had no filter, I had no desire to go higher up. So
we love that about you.
Yes, we do. We are vibing hard here.
And he said to me, "Oh, you're way too passionate. This is black and white." And I said, "This is special education, and it's all gray. And you better thank God I'm here, because I'm the only one who's got these kids' backs, and you are not going to take me down by, like, yes, I'm passionate. You're damn right."
Oh my God. I can't believe somebody trying to use that as a criticism of someone who's advocating for kids. And, you know, I love the way you explain neurodiversity. And that's exactly the thing I love about it, is that term just shows, like, everybody's neurodiverse in a way. Like, we're all diverse. None of us are the same. And so somewhere along the line, we got this idea that, and it, you know, it comes from capitalism. It comes from colonialism. It comes from trying to raise kids to make money, to fit into as a cog into a machine. So now, as we shed these old ideas and try to raise children in a supportive, loving environment where they can, like you say, be their authentic selves, show up in their most beautiful, diverse ways. The idea that there's not some that are broken that we put over here, and some that are that know how to do this and that are right there, and they're the good ones, like that. All of these old ideas, let's have this beautiful, diverse school system that supports all the kids where they are, because they do have all those gifts. So I love the way you talk about that.
You know, see, if we come at it like that, they're called their peers. Accept them for who they are.
Exactly.
And have so much more compassion and understanding when, you know, things are going a little bit off the rails, far more than a lot of teachers. There's so many times a day when I would say, that's somebody's child you're talking about. Be very careful. That's somebody's child. Could be yours. And it's not. Lucky them, but that's somebody's child. So be careful.
It's a human being. It's,
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, the idea of the good kids, or the kids who are, you know, high achieving or whatever, doesn't serve them either, because, you know, that puts this incredible pressure on these other kids too. I mean, everyone's got this pressure to be a certain thing. And just because they're getting the grades and doing the extras and doing the honor doesn't mean that they're healthy mentally, that they're loving it. That, you know, we know there's plenty of pleasers out there, speaking from a pleaser mentality myself. So, you know, give kids that permission to be authentic and be themselves, and, you know, college isn't for everyone.
Oh God.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that I feel like is the biggest scam that we perpetrate on our kids is this idea that your grades are just the most important thing.
Yeah.
And my son, still being neurodiverse, one of the things that affects him is this he's very literal about things.
Yeah.
So if a teacher says, if you don't get this grade, you won't be able to do this, especially in his formative years, he would take that and be like, oh, and he still has a residue of that. And I'm trying to help him unlearn it. But the idea that, he'll say, well, I won't be able to get a job if I don't get this grade. And I'm just like, never in my life has anyone asked me what my grades were in high school or college for that matter. Nobody cares. Like it's, yeah, do your best, do what you can, but also enjoy it. Like I did not enjoy my college years enough because I was so focused on, boy, you got to get these really good grades so that you can be successful in life. And that was not it. I missed the point big time.
Well, and this, I find even a lot of parents that I'm talking to, and parents do everything from their heart. So there's no judgment, but
right.
Whose dream is it? Whose goal is it?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I feel like, just sit back a little bit and just see what's happening, see what lights them up, see what they talk about the most, and go there. And just go there, because there's so many opportunities. And the great thing about COVID, if there's a few of them, is the opportunities to do things online and be entrepreneurs and be able to figure out something else. Like our kids can be doing that. They don't have to go to college or university. They can be doing something on YouTube and loving it and making $1 million, like, or whatever, just doing what they love, as opposed to, I feel like sometimes, I want to say to the parents, this is your work.
Yes.
You're here because of your kid, but I think this is your work. This isn't their work. You want to live vicariously through them. No, if you didn't get to go to university, you go apply. Leave them alone. Do what they want.
I think if anything I learned over the last hour with you is to understand that you think very much like Marci and I about the kids, about the upcoming generations. And I think one of your other podcasts, you talked about kids and their superpowers, right? Like Marci and I kind of feel like that, like they're super sensitive. They're very aware. I mean, they're very much about the environment now. Gun safety, like, so talk a little bit what you see with the kids that you've worked with and their superpowers. Let's promote these kids and the millennials, not just the teens, but we talked about, a few different age groups, but
Oh yeah. Well, my daughter's 30, for instance, and she just started, she was doing radio promo. She was writing commercials for a big company. And she just said to me, I don't, it's not doing it for me. And not just financially, it's just not doing it for me. And on the side, she was doing art and she's creating installations. Like every time you talk about your art, it's like a Christmas tree.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes.
And we have this phenomenal OCAD, College of Art Design here, that's very well known in Toronto, very challenging to get in. And within 3 months, she created her profile, she submitted it, and now she's going into 4 years of debt with student debt, but she's loving it. And when she starts getting antsy about the money, I say, it will work. You will find a way. And this is what I want to say to all the kids. And I'm noticing, like, her friends are the same. Her, the millennials she's hanging out with, they're the same. And my son, he's 34 and he's just starting to do this now. And they're not doing the go here, get married, get a house.
Yes.
First of all, you can't afford a house anymore.
Right.
No.
So let's change that mindset. You know what?
Yeah.
If you have to rent, but you want to live in a place that lights you up, then you rent.
Yes.
If you have to, if you can't afford school, but there's something that you love, dive in, phone the person, get connected to the person that's doing exactly what you want to do in 5 years and say, hey, because if they love it, they will help you.
Yes.
If they're
Well,
shining
and-
their light, they are going to be right there helping you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the money will follow, right? If you're
Yes.
just doing what you love. But we talked about this earlier too. Like you have set the example for them. Look what you did, right? Like, okay, I'm in the school system, I'm getting a paycheck. No. It's not lighting me up anymore. I need to go do something else. So you have given them permission to be able to do that themselves, right? You've modeled that for them in a beautiful way, right?
Yeah.
And just don't wait so long.
Yeah.
Start this in grade 9, when the kids are in grade 9.
Yeah.
Start watching them, like sit back and listen to your kids.
Yeah.
Listen to when their voice goes up and listen to when their voice goes down.
Yes.
Right. And you can't always do everything you love. I get it. But you can find a way to do more of what you love. So you're in that vibe more than you're not in that vibe.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of our tools, we talked about our core tools with you when we were on your podcast, but one of our tools is called Empowered Mindset. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It starts with this, like, don't think, what could I afford or what can I manage to do, but what would I love? And start there. And then just start taking some steps towards that, like for your daughter, I would love to go to this school. Well, what can you do right now? Maybe it all feels too overwhelming. You could look up the application process. You could start filling that out and just take it a step at a time, and know that when you're passionate and you're putting your energy there and knowing that that's what you want and that you're going to do that resources will show up, things will show up. So
and you change the mindset to, how can this work? Then you start looking for opportunities.
You're open.
How can this work? Not all this is never going to happen.
Exactly. Just having that open mindset. God, that's so powerful for anyone, but to be teaching that to teens is really, really fantastic.
We all find it tough. I mean, the whole podcast entrepreneur thing.
Yeah. No, it's not about being easy.
No.
My head's going to blow up sometimes. And there's my trick, is when I get lost in the tech, I go find a podcast or something I know how to do. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know why I'm doing this. Let's go back to just one next step in the right direction. Just to keep,
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, I don't want to completely change the subject, but I feel like I haven't had much of or Marci and I haven't had much of a conversation about this term helicopter parent. And I noticed from either one of your podcasts or something that I read about you about helicopter parents. And so I think you might be the perfect person to talk about this, being that you're not the helicopter parent, or maybe you were, I don't know, like we've all maybe had a little bit of
but you've probably seen it.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yes. So talk about that and why you think that is. How did we get here? How do we get to that place where we had helicopter parents?
And I think, based on even what I said before, it's work the parents have to do on themselves first. Because they're so afraid to let kids fail and to let kids, when I was in my position, I would go into grade 8 and, in our school system from grade 1 to grade 8, you don't fail. Doesn't matter what you do, you move ahead. Okay, I understand that mindset only because of the age and the social, like how that would feel. But the first thing I say, when you get to grade 9, you have the opportunity to fail.
Nice.
And, if parents are allowing the kids to fail and to pick themselves up and brush themselves off and figure out, okay, what did this teach me? Have their back, support them, but not fix it, because it's the little failures. Those skills they start to build. I forgot my lunch. I didn't do this. I didn't study for the test. So I failed, blah, 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 blah. Those are the little bits of resilience that build up so that when they're 21 and they have the big heartbreak or they get fired. Like, we've got kids who have never failed and now they're at the edge of a bridge because they got fired because they have no idea how to handle it.
Yeah. It's
and
devastating.
I think it does two things. It also tells our kids, if we're running around fixing things, what it says to your kid, I think, is you don't have any faith in me to do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we have to say. You can do this. I'll help you. I can give you some suggestions, but you're making the call. You're taking the zero. You're going hungry for lunch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they, you know, if it's directly connected, then they have that little building block of steps to know how to fail big time.
I think you nailed it. I think resiliency is everything. And my husband is has a big employment company, and so much of what they feel like they're missing with these millennials, especially because that's the biggest part of the workforce right now, is this piece on resiliency. And so I think I mentioned to you some of the kids that are going on to college. I was writing letters for them, and I made sure to put that in their letters about how resilient they were, how I've seen them struggle from the time they were little kids with anxiety and all these things, and how they have come back. And I feel like that's what the helicopter parent, that's the piece that we didn't do well. Right. And that is the piece. And so then how do we unlearn that? Right. So now all of a sudden you got to let them fail when they're in, 25 and 30 years old. Right?
Yeah.
That's difficult to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's your work as a parent.
That's
now.
right.
Yes.
That's your work. You have to take a really good look inside and say, even when they're younger, and they're on teams and they, don't get the pass or don't get the kick, those are the times where it's like, okay, what did you learn from this? And is it your belief as a parent? Is it your embarrassment that the kid didn't get the pass? Is it your embarrassment that they didn't get the part in the play? Like, we kind of have to go back and say, is this bothering you because of the kid? Or is this something you need to work on first or together?
Right. And another thing about what Debbie was saying about when you've reached that, you've been a little bit helicoptery, and now you're realizing, oh, that's not so good. I need to change that. Just communicating with your kid, because you've taught them one way, whether it was spoken or just by your stepping in. It's really good. It's really empowering for both of you to sit down and say, you know what? I feel like I've been doing this wrong. Like, this is a mistake I've made. I've overprotected you, and I just didn't realize that you got this. And so, now I'm going to pull back, and I want you to know it's not because I don't love you, or, I see that I made a mistake. And so I'm going to try to do better, and I'm going to allow you to do this on your own and to fail. And we're both going to, know that it's okay to fail, and have that conversation so that they can know that, oh, this is a space for me to step into and not be freaked out themselves by it versus just trying to suddenly not help. Like, when you have those conversations, then you're going to hear from them too. You might hear from, yeah, I did kind of think that, or you're right. And that's part of the building resilience too, is that now they're hearing what you're saying, and they're taking that next step.
Yeah. And to have those conversations, I agree to say, you've got this. And can you point out times when they did? Can you show them they were a badass here? You were a badass
they
here.
Need that. We all need that. Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And even, can you share stories of your own life when you were a kid and this happened? And then because of that, you learned this. So redefine even what failure is. What is it? It's a different opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Say that again. Everybody needs to hear that again.
Redefine failure. It is just a different opportunity.
Yes.
Amen.
Opportunity to grow, learn. Yeah. And, another thing I see sometimes with my son or with other kids, this idea that you have to be good at something from the start. And the idea to, oh, I'm just not good enough. And I think that was me. There was a lot of things I didn't do as a kid because I was afraid to look like I didn't know what I was doing or whatever. I just had that like good girl, like best, I need to be good at things before I let the world see them. That's a broken paradigm that we need to let loose. And I heard someone compare it to, when a kid first starts walking, and they fall the first time, a baby, they don't give up and say, oh, well, I guess walking's not for me. They keep doing it and doing it. And there's no judgment about the failing. So that's where we need to get, like, oh yeah, I just fell when I was trying to do whatever it was I was doing, or I just messed up a little bit. Let me try again. That's the only way I'm going to learn. It's practice.
Yeah, perfectionism is an illusion, and it's very boring.
Yes, boring and
so boring.
Painful and not good for anybody.
Yeah. I want to hear some of Cheryl's success stories. I know you had the stories of triumph. Clearly, you're doing a beautiful job as a parent. Tell us about some of the other kids you've worked with over the years and some of their success stories. Love to hear that.
Yeah, I built a really strong relationship with the highest needs kids, because they really, social skills were like impossible. And I think being able to sit down with them and have them understand that, kids on the spectrum may never understand true empathy or body language or tone. And so to get them to understand, this is the facial expression if somebody's doing this, and they're never going to learn it as understand it, but we call it like a rote memory skill, right?
Right.
We don't know why they picked red for a red light to stop, but we know if the light turns red, we stop. So, and I think without, naming names, there's many kids that I have a few pointed kids where I probably may not be here without being able to, and not because of me, because we have been able to have that relationship. And I think being able to be the go-between with the parent and the teen is sometimes so important, because it's in their face, or they feel, the parent might feel like a failure if the kid's not talking to them or explain, but they will come into my office and talk to me. And if they open up enough to say, well, my kid's not talking to me, but they are talking to somebody, put your pride away. And as long as they have a caring adult in their life, encourage that. And that is kind of all of my success stories going along, as I was able to just say, okay, let's move from here. Let's start where we're at and move from here and grow. And
no judgment.
No,
right.
no.
Judgment.
And parents, everybody, I don't know if you know Ross Green, but everybody does well when they can. But when we're talking about kids, they do well when they can. And when they can't, it's because there's something in the way. And when I can get parents to redirect their thinking, no, they're not pushing your buttons, they're not manipulating you, they're not just lazy. This is all just secondary to there's something else. They're not meeting an expectation and they know it. And so how can we help them meet that expectation? And do they have to meet that expectation?
Right.
Let's
step back.
Pick your battles. I think in another one of my episodes was just choose your battles. Like pick the hill you want to die on, and the rest go, because your relationship with your kid is so much more important than homework and socks on the floor.
So true. So true.
We talked about that. Like, whose expectation is it? Is it really your kid's expectation of what they want their life to be, or is that the parents' expectation? Right.
Right.
Most of the time, you just need to let that go.
There's so much.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. And like I said on your podcast, the worst thing is to suddenly be in a crisis with your child where they're self-harming or possibly, thinking about self-harming, or, to where suddenly your priorities realign, because you're realizing, because of the crisis, because you could lose your child, that a lot of that other stuff is bullshit. And that what really matters is just being there for them and helping them and letting them heal, letting them deal with whatever this big thing is that's causing them to be so out of center, so unhappy, so depressed, so overwhelmed. I went through that personally, and I just would never wish that on anyone, to have to come to that before you could really start to see it. yeah, emotional wellness is like, it's primary. You got to have that before you can do any of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's your
So,
foundation, 100%. Yeah.
yeah. Which is why that social emotional learning is so powerful, so fundamental, so important. And the earlier, the better.
And do it at home.
Yes. Yes.
Set the example.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I watch a lot of the reels on Instagram and or other people's TikToks or whatever that are around gentle parenting. And so that's the much younger people. And I'm so impressed by it. And it's such a shift from what I was learning when I was parenting my kids, 30 years ago. But, part of it's that letting them fail, like when they're starting to climb, instead of getting right there, it's sawdust or it's rubber. They're, if they fall, they're not going to die. They're going to just kind of learn. And so stepping back, letting them try things, and letting them, make messes, which is hard when you're the one who's going to have to clean it up, and you know it. But that's where it's pick your battles. Your house, like I used to try to keep my house so clean, and that was a control issue that I had. But I should have been, letting them pour milk into a glass, even though you know what's going to happen when a 2-year-old tries to. But that's part of then they learn and they do better, in the cooking and the whatever, the things that light them up. Again, just letting them experience those things, and then the feelings, letting them have those big feelings rather than sit, when I was raising, it was time out. That's what you did. But now it's, sitting down and talking about the feelings, and, I know this feels really hard, and helping them develop the language to talk about it,
And don't
that's
assume what's
amazing
hard.
to me. Yeah.
Like you have to listen to them to know what's being hard. Like
Yes.
it's making those assumptions. Oh, you must feel like crap because you did this, or you must feel terrible. Well, maybe that's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
So what's hard about whatever?
Yeah.
And then listen and listen and listen. And then you empathize. Oh my God, that must have been terrible.
Yeah.
That must have felt like shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Marci
how can I help you?
We're talking about that, like giving them a voice, right? Like Marci and I are just finding our voice right now on the podcast. Like,
100%.
Yeah, because we were not allowed to speak. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Just shut up. We don't want to hear
you. Girl. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when Marci and I first met doing this book, I'm big in the Enneagrams. I don't know if you know about Enneagrams, but so when I first met Marci, like this was her thing. And so as I've known her now for all these years, I just watched her continue to speak and to speak and to speak. And it's beautiful. And so yeah, I think that is hopefully something the younger generations will never have to go through. Like, right, if we can escort these kids, and at least that one thing can go away, the lack of empathy and the lack of listening and understanding your kids, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, my mother still says, "You're gonna do what? Are you gonna get paid?" And every week when I finish recording, she says, "So did you get paid yet?" It's volunteer, Mom.
Right. That whole idea that not everything we do, like we don't put value on what we do based on monetary system, but that there's way more to our lives than that. And again, another podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, I think we are running out of time.
Yes.
We've had 2 beautiful hours with Cheryl this morning.
I agree. It was phenomenal.
And I'm pretty sure we have lots of other topics to discuss. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have her back. So yes. So Cheryl, tell us how people can find you. Maybe they want to do some work with you, listen to your podcast.
My website is under construction, but you still might find it at CherylPankhurst.com. But I'm on Instagram at Cheryl A. Pankhurst, Facebook, Cheryl A. Pankhurst. My podcast is Teen Minds Redefined. You'll find it anywhere. And I also have another podcast with a bunch of women, like The View. We got to talk about that again too. And that's called Transforming Lives Panel Podcast. So we talk about everything life. So you will find me there.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to
Excellent.
hear that. All right. So Marci, those will go in the show notes, right?
Yes, all of that will be available in the show notes, so that you can like her, follow her, subscribe, and share so
Beautiful,
that
yes.
because there's people who needs this information so badly right now, and boy, would I have loved to have had it when I was going through a lot of this
Mhm.
stuff. So yeah, that's why we do it. That's why we're
Yep,
here.
yep, you're doing
Yeah.
beautiful work too. I really have
Right back
grateful
at
to
you.
have met you
You too.
Yes,
and get to
us
listen.
too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And now for a moment about meditation and how it can help you and your family to self-regulate and mindfully return to a place of calm and centeredness. Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. Meditation is just one of these powerful tools. And through a special partnership with Donna Appadoni, we have created a group of meditations available only on our platform and via Donna's own website. Here's Donna.
A garden is a place of peace. The flowers of gold and red, pink and purple. The leaves that are every shade of green. Hi, I'm Donna Appadoni. I'm the person who writes and produces meditations for Core Experience. Your assignment, if you'll accept it, this week is to find a garden and sit in it. Maybe the weather isn't quite right for that where you are. Maybe you don't feel like sitting outside in a garden, but try doing it just for a few minutes. Look around you. How do the trees look? What colors are in the garden? Do you see birds? Do you hear birds? Is there any other activity, little animals? What can you smell? It's a wonderful place to be in a garden, even when it's not the right weather for it. Of course, gardens are different every week of the year, so you can do this every week of the year. Keep going back. You'll always notice something new. You'll notice differences from week to week. It's a lesson in nature. It's a lesson in growth. And it's a lesson we can all get something from. Remember, whatever's going on with you, you can do whatever you set your mind to do. Hummingbirds, butterflies, worms, honeybees, a tiny green frog, they all join with me to celebrate this space of growth and abundance, this cornucopia. A garden is a place of peace.
Donna's book, called Drive Time Meditations, is a collection of 183 of her purpose-driven motivators. Drive Time Meditations is available on Amazon.
Thank you for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast. You can find us at coreexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our meditation segment is produced by Donna Appadoni with music from Scott Holmes. The full collection of meditations is in Donna's book, Drive Time Meditations, available on Amazon and at donnaappadoni.com. Thanks to Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. The Warrior Parent Podcast is a production of Core Experience. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.